Herrera, and I'm the board administrator. This is a reminder that this meeting is being recorded. The sign-up sheet. I want to note that the board members and staff, do have a copy of the minutes from April 6th and May 4th for 2023 and the 2023 meeting schedule for the year. Madam Chair, we are ready to begin.
All right, let me go ahead and call this session of the Oregon Aviation Board into session. And before we start, if I could remind you, as a courtesy for everyone out there, particularly in internet land, if you could silence any phones, that would be awesome. And then while everybody's doing that, it's kind of fun to be back live and in person. And one of the cool things is we get to be here, and we have to get some different folks at the table. So like to re-up a tradition we used to have before we went totally online. And if we could go around and get introductions from just those people in the room, that would be great. I tell you what, let's start with the staff so you kind of know who you're talking with here. So Tony, if you could lead us off.
Yeah, good morning. Tony Beach, State Airports Manager with the Oregon Department of Aviation.
Hi, I'm Kenji Sugahara. I'm the new Director of the Department of Aviation.
Thomas, Department of Aviation, Program Coordinator with the Core Grant Programs.
Andrea Abrahamson with ODAV, and I'm also a program coordinator with the core grants.
Hi, I'm Holly Herrera, and I'm doing the board administration today.
Steve Nagy, Board Member.
Steve Bateman, I'm the director of the Flying Clubs group at AOPA, recently moved to Redmond.
Oh, great.
My name is Ralph Hudson, and I'm a resident of Valley View, and we're concerned about some development.
Got
Potentially.
John Reiser, private pilot, Valley View State Aviation.
Aaron Gable, airport manager here in Madras.
Nice, fantastic that you let us, kind of join your party here today, so.
Yeah. Bill Bracco with Central West Engineering, we're a consultant who work for a number of airports.
Okay.
Including Madras.
Holly, can make sure that we take a quick count here for the board and find out who we have and who we don't.
All right, so for a roll call for the board, Catherine Stevens is present, or Catherine Stevens. Know that she logged in.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We have you, Catherine.
Okay, wish I was there in person.
Martha Meeker,
Here.
Steve Nagy,
Here.
Tom Kruger. Oh, I didn't see him. Okay. We can give him a call.
Okay, we'll give him a call, see if we can get one go together.
Okay, and Sarah Lucas, present. We will give Tom Kruger a call then.
Okay. I guess we still have, even if Tom doesn't make it online, we still have the quorum, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And roll call is complete. Thank you.
All right, super. Thank you very much. Well, with that, before we get to public comment, let's go ahead and get a little bit of just normal homework out of the way. Board members, before you, you've got our consent agenda, which is consists of the minutes from the previous board meeting and then our work session. Does any of that need to be amended, or do we need to add anything? Let me open it up to any board member. Okay, hearing nothing, if I could get a motion to approve the minutes from the April 6, 2023 board meeting, as well as the May 2023 work session as presented, that would be great. I have a
Motion for that.
first motion for Steve. Do I have a second? So we add a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion passes as is. Okay, so let me turn it over to Holly and we'll run into, dive into our public comments.
Okay, so public comments here. So for the record, for public comments, please give your name, your city of residence, and affiliation, if any, and then you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. First of all, are there any elected officials here who would like to address the board? Internet. Anything. All right, and then the sign-in sheet here. I do see that there's a couple. So the first one on here is Ralph Hudson. There you go.
All yours, Ralph.
I really don't have anything to present, more information about what's happening to our airport, what we can do in anticipation in the future to help us out. The airport has recently sold and papers are signed. The developer, person who bought it, has made statements that says he wants it to remain an airport and he wants it to be profitable. We don't quite know what that means, but we also recognize that he's an investment firm and has to do with development. And for that aspect, we're concerned that we can see our airport go into housing pretty quickly. So we want to see if there's anything we can do, try to lock that down, get ahead of it. And, make it difficult, if not impossible, for him to do such a thing. I've been on the airport as a resident for 20 years. Commercial flight instructor and wonderful place to live, and we'd like to remain there and keep it in the airport.
What is it actually at in relation to the airport? Is it actually, which? The developer, you said the developer.
Valley View Airport is connected.
Yes. You said, excuse me, but you said you got a new, developer down in the area.
The airport is about 160 acres.
60 acres then.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was developed out of a portioning rule which allows 20 houses to be built on subsidized lots.
Oh,
And
okay.
I live in one of those 20 houses. There are 5 hangars associated with those 20 houses. They were occupied. Like to see the airplanes go on and off. That's fun. So,
Okay,
but the area, the part that we're concerned with is about 60 acres, which has not been developed. Has the runway, taxiways, common zones. There's certain issues about responsibility. Who takes care of it?
Yeah.
Mowing the grass, taking care of the beaver dam. And some other issues that impact how to keep the airport usable.
got it. Okay. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. So next is John Rizzer.
Riser,
Riser.
same
Same
issue. We just kind of here to see what the state can do for us to keep our airport from going into housing.
Okay, got it. Primarily, I believe it's the city, development, that's always gonna be a local jurisdiction since it's not our airport. However, we do have the core funding and those things that help build facilities and operations at the airport that make it attractive to keep. So I think that's probably where we can help the most, is trying to find out where we can help prop up things that may need some help.
Do you talk to the local officials? If they came to you and
If they want to, yeah. We've talked to them, if they, like I said, to help facilitate, if there's any desire for an airport to change hands, to at least start discussions. Don't know where those local local officials are in discussions.
the mayor likes the airport, the city council likes the airport. We put into some comments to the city council on, the viability and the advantage of having an airport. And if we lose it, we'll never get it back.
Yeah, so, if the local officials want some advice or help, or they've got some kind of idea of what we can do as a state agency, more than willing to meet with them, tickle pink.
Okay, John Wilson has met with them.
Okay,
And I kind of hoping he was here, but talk more to him.
all right, more to follow then. Let us do a little bit of insertion. Okay,
The airport has accepted money from the state in terms of improvements over the years. But so commitment there, and we're aware of, but we also understand that the method for the new owner to buy out his obligation is to do what he wants. So
well, it'll be interesting to see what the owners actually have in mind. Yeah, never can tell. around, but like I said, in the meantime, we do respect local control. So we will kind of stand back until they reach out to us, because I've got a big thing about not being overreaching as a state agency.
Okay.
Thanks.
Right, so next on our list here, is Steve Bateman. For public comment.
Oh. I said signed up for public comment, but hello.
Oh, okay.
You just like to sign up because you're.
Take any box if there's a box.
Yeah.
Like I say, I'm new to the area. I've actually joined in a couple of these meetings by Zoom before in preparation for the move. I'm delighted to be here.
All right, well, thanks, and we're glad to have you here. Thanks for coming down.
Thank you. All right, and that takes care of our in-person public comments. All right, so are there any others present in person or online who would like to address the board? So for people online, please use the raise hand function or send in the chat if you want to make a public comment.
Looks like we're all quiet out there on internet land.
Everyone quiet, I'm quiet.
I don't see anybody with their hand raised. Okay, I do see.
Bill Grupp,
Here we go.
over there.
All right, so Bill, I'm gonna go ahead and get you in here. Okay, we are ready for you, Bill.
Hi, just confirming you can hear me. Hello?
Hey, Bill, we got you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make a comment to the board at here at the Columbia Aviation Association and other groups. We are really strongly helping and supporting the new aviation program run by CTEC at Salem Kaiser School District. The building is just up from the main offices at Salem Kaiser at the Salem Airport. And we strongly want to encourage all the support we can get for this program to help high school kids get into aviation careers. It's a real well-run setup. They're building it now, and just looking forward to really having a great program for kids to learn all about the aviation career pathways and getting on the track for helping us in becoming aviation industry leaders. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. And it's really great to see the education side of aviation expanding out into high schools. And it's right there at Salem. So I would imagine that maybe we could have a board meeting or at least get some staff members to go over there and praise them and see, we are very supportive of those types of educating programs and however we can be supportive. So thank you for bringing that up, Bill.
Right, is there anyone else who would like to address the board with a public comment? So no further public comments. We have come to the end of public testimony.
All right, well, super. Well, then that gets us into the first ever Kenji Director's Update.
Chair Meeker. So we'll see how it goes. But before I dive into it, I can't say how excited I am for what Bill just talked about, especially with CTEC. That's a fantastic program. And I plan on definitely coming over and saying hi because I see a lot of value in education. So just want to put that out there. Thanks, Bill, and you'll see me soon. But to start out, do we have the presentation ready?
I can put it up for you.
Okay, sure,
I can
sure.
also share.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right.
Is it the ODA presentation?
Yep, ODA presentation, dash one. Thank you. So this will be fairly quick. I just want to give folks an update on session because I imagine everybody is very interested in what's going on in the legislature. For those folks who don't know, there is no quorum in the Senate right now, so work has come to a standstill. And there is a question whether anything's going to happen between now and the end of session, so we'll see. But we've had some bills pass, which is fantastic. So SB 482, which is the Dallas Education Credit. Let's go ahead and pop that up there. While they're putting it up, I'll just go ahead and keep on going. SB 810, which was the UAS penalties, which makes the Class A felony to use a UAS to direct a laser at an aircraft in the air, crash a UAS into an aircraft in the air, prevent the takeoff or landing of an aircraft, has passed. There we go. SB 812 passed as well, which allows local governments to prohibit UAS in public parks, the takeoff and landing at least. And then HB 3058, which is the bill that directed ODAF to study resiliency. That has passed as well. Still in play, mostly because the Senate it hasn't been able to meet. Our budget, which is HB 5004, HB 2269, which is the ODAF fees into administrative roles. That's being hung up. HB 2520, which is the UAS wildfire interference. HB 2834, which is verdict warrants. And then HB 3551, Alaska Airlines tax exemption. That just went into House Revenue yesterday. And that's scheduled for it was scheduled for public hearing and a work session. Only the public hearing has happened thus far on that. So if you go to the next page.
Can you real quick,
Yes.
on the resiliency report, did the completion date stay the same, or are we gonna be able to wiggle around it?
January 1st, 2024, Chairmaker.
Okay, so it's still there. All right,
Fortunately, we have one of our ace employees on that,
all right, so.
which I'll get to you in a second. So in terms of the legislation that is not happening, it's dead, it's gone. SB 809, which directed ODAF to study UAS, that's dead. HB 2139, ODAF to study Salem Air Service. HB 2524, which is jet fuel tax increase. HB 2668, Aurora Airport Advisory Council. HB 2686, ODFW overflights notice. HB 2668, UAS overflight permission, which is folks would have to get permission for overflights. HB 22007 and 2936, which was the PDX concealed carry. HB 3257, ODAF to study electrification. And finally, HB 3202, which was the outdoor lighting shielding, which we picked up on late because we didn't know it would actually affect airports.
Real quick,
Yes.
on the ODAF to study the Salem Air Service, somehow that was just confusion. Any way to get back to the sponsor of the House Bill 2139 to go, hey, we are not the right people, but you may want to go here to help that individual get into the, because they've been studying
Yes.
air service forever.
Yes.
So, and they kind of scattershot in the wrong places.
I can't speak for the legislator in question, but from our conversations, that person does understand that.
Okay, super.
So for the governor's update, this pretty much says that the governor is working very hard to come up with a resolution for the walkout. And that she recognizes that there are some dire circumstances that we're facing. Our staff or our agency, as well as other state agencies, has relayed the imperative and the issues that are brought up if our budget isn't passed. And there's a lot of consternation among other agency directors as well. And they are looking at all potential contingencies as well. And it's a highly fluid situation, so we do not know what's going to happen. The legislature is.
Okay.
Okay, so next slide. This is the fun part. So this is a picture. This is a drone over at Scappoose Airport. So if Amy and Miriam are out, hi, that was with them. And we were out there visiting the airport as well. So some of the priorities that we've been working on at the agency. So there's a DEI plan, and that's a governor's directive. So that's diversity, equity, inclusion. So that's a priority because it's a mandate that's due today. And we submitted, so we met the governor's expectations. Another one is a strategic plan for the agency, which I think is one of the most critical things that we can do as an agency in the next year or two. And it's going to require all hands on deck, including board members as well as staff and external stakeholders like yourself, because that's going to help set us up for success, give us guidance of where folks want to see the agency go, and set some sort of guardrails around what we can do and what we can't do.
Is it strictly limited to, you should be involved in these processes, or is it, if you want us to do this, then we need this? Is it you outlining as the director and staff what processes you should be involved in, or is it giving the governor a menu of, if you want this, then I'm gonna need that?
The strategic plan is really, it gets all the feedback from all the stakeholders. So it's not that ODAF saying, oh, we're gonna do this, but really getting all feedback from all parties to figure out what we want to do and making sure we have the staff and the resources to be able to do it.
So you do get to transmit, like, if at the end of the session, you find out that the majority of stakeholders, we are missing, there's a gap in what ODAF does.
Yeah.
And your ability to give the feedback up to the governor saying, there's a gap. To fill the gap, though, we're either gonna need to cut this or we need to add.
Yeah, and that goes into the strategic
Okay.
plan. And everybody's going to be involved in that process. And we're gonna need a lot of guidance from the board and involvement with the board as well. So that's part of it. And of course, the next bullet is prioritizing work, because I think
Yep.
we just, as a small agency, we can't do everything for everybody. And we need to figure out what we can do, and we do it well. I mean, that's the most important thing. We want to provide customer service. We want to do it well, because we want the taxpayers of Oregon to realize there's a return on investment, because we get money from you. We want to make sure that you're seeing the benefits of what we take in.
Can you, Stevens had a question.
Oh, yes, Catherine.
Basically, I didn't want to.
No. I got on a roll, and you feel free to interrupt.
Catherine, go ahead, please.
Hi there, you can. I've been having technology challenged. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think I finally got it going here. Okay, my question on the strategic plan is, do you think we will need to be hiring a consultant to do that work?
So that is Chair Meeker, Board Member Stevens. That was going to be driven by DAS. So DAS is going through a process. Because it's a governor's mandate, they are coming out with parameters for strategic planning. And they're gonna come out with some guides for us. I'd personally like to employ a consultant because they can provide us with a lot of good insight and help us out with the process. So that is where we're at on that. Does that answer your question?
It sure does. Thank you.
Yeah, that's, it's interesting because you guys are already doing your day job. So this is very important. So the trying to pull from your day job to do this as a night,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with you 100%. This needs to be a separate entity that can give it their full time.
Sure. As agents, and the process for how they will collate and align those all across different agencies so that there is, obviously input from the governor's office to different agencies.
Yes.
Is there a process for how they will review and align
Yes.
whatever your inputs are?
Yes. So DAS, that's part of that whole DAS
Okay.
processing.
Okay.
Yep.
More for us to learn, I'm sure, along the way. Thank you.
A rather large project is being.
Right, yeah. No, that's fine.
Great. So one of the priorities that I've also been working on as well is interviewing all the employees, just sitting down, just having meet and greets with them and figuring out exactly what their job has been and what they love about the agency, because I think that's super important for employee morale. Figure out what they like and see where we can make improvements. And it might be as simple as just say, hey, one of the things that I did was I bought a new coffee machine, brought it into the office, and made folks really happy. The other thing too is beyond that is we need to fill the board. And it's absolutely critical we find the right people to fill our board. And this is, we'll talk amongst the board as well and get all your input and figure out what holes we have in terms of what, for example, is there somebody who would be very good at education? Who could we go out to the community and recruit and talk to and really round out our board and figure out how to make it more effective and have more information and different points of view as well.
And on that, I would just ask board members and anybody out there, by the way, sometimes we rely on just people giving their names to us. I think if you truly want quality, sometimes you have to go out and ask the person to apply. So if you think you have somebody out there who may want to have an interest in aviation, and would do well in this position, and it takes some time and it takes some commitment, but you do get a chance to make policy that affects, statewide aviation. And finding that right person that brings a level of knowledge to truly benefit Kenji's operation over here it's a great chance to do some really good stuff. So it kind of probably behooved upon us to go out and reach out and tag some folks as well versus just waiting for names to come in. So, if we can at all, if you got anybody in mind, or if you guys have got any in mind, some quick huddles and maybe go out and do some targeted, recruitment. Can't hurt. The worst they can do is say no.
Go fishing.
Go fish, exactly.
So the next one is, I just want to talk about is a priority, of course, because it's mandated by the legislature, is HB 3058. And our expert key person on this is Betty.
Mhm.
Betty Stansberry has agreed to stay on and help us out with that. And it's her passion to talk to her about it. She will talk your ear off about resiliency. And it's so amazing to have her expertise on that and have her stay on board as well. So thank you, Betty. I know you're listening in. Really looking forward to working extensively with you. We actually have a meeting next week to talk about timelines. So we're going to figure out, working backwards from the due date, with time for editing and such, when we're going to have our first meeting, when these certain milestones need to happen to have a successful product and make it a really good product as well. Yes.
And, Chairman here, and Kenji, I think, Betty's reached out to our organization, and I have both our state government affairs person, who actually also used to be the resiliency director for the city of Portland prior to taking over the state government affairs, and also our resiliency manager will be involved in your process as part of the stakeholder.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Sounds like we chose the right person to head this project.
Betty's already made those connections.
Good. The next thing is hiring for Heather's position. That's been a process. We ran into some challenges. The candidates were great, but I think they were not a great fit. So what we did was we closed it, and we're going through the reclass of the position. And we're going to reopen it as soon as we get permission from DES. So that's in legislative, our fiscal folks as well.
Any timeline on when you think you may get the reclassification through? I mean, are we talking in a month or are we talking in a year?
It's DES.
Your best bet's, oh, great director.
Yes. I don't want to promise anything at this point, but as soon as we can. And yeah, they know that we need to fill the position, but we're also competing with other agencies that have need to fill positions.
Understand.
So, but the person who's over there knows that it's a priority for them. So one of the other priorities is reaching out to stakeholders and legislators. That's super important to me. And just making sure that we're reaching out. June and July is the time I'll be doing that. I've already scheduled some sort of time to spend out there. And also board members as well. So just sitting down with each of you, getting your insight, and just having a chance to chat with you, find out what some of your priorities are, and just have a meet and greet as well. So that's a priority for me. And then also visiting all the airports is a priority for me, because there's nothing like visiting each of your airports to see what it's actually like on the ground and meeting you at your location. I think it's super important to say hi, and you can show me what your airport's like. Right. And I'll also bring my drone by the way. And I take drone photos, and at the end, I'll give them to you as well. So if there's anything that you want a photo of, I'll do it. And we'll also get a selfie like that as well. Another priority over the next couple of years is also finding new ways to fund the agency. We don't have much money, and we want to make sure that we fulfill our mission, thinking of new ideas to get money into the agency so we can do more for everybody else. Not for the sake of just making more money, but giving better service to our constituents. And then finally, one of the things I'm interested in talking to everybody about, not necessarily today, but in the future, is a rebrand. So a new logo and stuff. So put that on the radar.
Before you go,
Uh-huh.
just a quick question on reaching out and, I see Jake is on here and I see some Tony Hebling and company there from Aurora. Any thoughts about, maybe attending Oravi? So they got the fall session coming up. I don't know if they're gonna
Oh,
get their.
All will work. All will work.
Okay. And then Columbia Association is always great, probably the largest, general aviation group that we have out there. And any thoughts about going and chit chatting with the,
Of course.
all right, super.
I'm a nerd.
Fantastic.
Catherine Stevens hands up.
Yes. Or that, Mark.
Catherine, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Yeah, hi there. Thank you. Yeah, I'm wondering if we have an update on the Oak Ridge Airport. I believe that there was some potential legislation to provide some funding, or was in the works. I don't know if it ever happened this session or not.
I think that got next to general aviation. They wanted to go the general fund funding. That died, didn't it?
There is a potential for. Yeah, for now, there's nothing identified.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So next slide, please. So I'd love to talk to you about wins, things that have been great and I'm excited to talk about. Well, I'm always excited to talk about things that we were able to meet with Grady Stone, regional administrator for the FAA, twice. And the second time was at Cape Blanco. The first one was down in Eugene, and Benny and I were able to meet with him. And then the second time, that picture there, another droney, of course. That's Tony and I at Cape Blanco with regional administrator. So that was a win. We were able to talk to some about the issues with the administrator as well. The other wins, the meetings with the employees and the managers are going quite well. There's, I think, like 1 or 2 employees still left, so that's going well. As I mentioned before, we visited. I was able to visit a number of state airports, Scappoose, Cape Blanco, and Bandon, and then yesterday I got to go out with Alex and visit a couple of airports as well. So, got to meet Derek, yeah, here, and then got to meet Zach. In Redmond, and he told me that they're in competition with Medford in terms of number of spots and number of passengers. So that was interesting to hear. And of course, Kelly, right over there, got to meet over at Prineville, which was a fantastic opportunity as well. So thank you. And then I was able to attend agency director trainings as well as cabinet meetings. So that's been a win. And then we were on the resiliency side, we were able to meet with Representative Evans to talk about the resiliency study. So he was able to give us some more guidance in terms of what he wanted to see as part of that resiliency study.
Who does Representative Evans, what part of the state is he from?
West Salem.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes, he's my representative.
got it.
Yeah, so that was great. And then on the fun side, we got a drone at the agency and we had a drone naming contest. So we were very close to coming out with a winner. And hopefully I'll be coming out with that on Monday at our staff meeting. And then on another note, on the national level, I was appointed as an alternate to the FAA Counter UAS Aviation Rulemaking Committee as an alternate for the NASAA, which is the National Association of State Airport Operators. So that was good. And then, of course, we connected with NASAA as well. Yes.
As that initiative, but as that initiative on counter UAS moves forward, I think many of us would love to hear more about that, especially as airport operators.
Yes.
We'd love to, probably throughout the state, many airport operators would love to hear about the guidance that's going to come out associated with that moving forward.
Yeah, definitely among stakeholders, we can discuss it. There's some strict sort of information sharing
Sure.
requirements among that as well.
As it becomes public, it doesn't need to be in advance, but as it becomes public, just learning more about it, because it's certainly I'm sure for Catherine, for ourselves, even for GA airports, it's becomes more and more of an interference issue of.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, we're all users of the airspace, and FAA is classified UAS as aircraft, so there's no arguing about that, but just how to segregate and counter that threat is.
Absolutely. And that's part of the whole process. There's discussion about detection and mitigation as well.
Yeah. So as it becomes more, I'd love to hear more about it, especially your role in that.
We can deep dive on that as much as you want.
Thank you.
And could you,
Yes,
that meeting with Grady, I understand it's probably just a hi, how are you? Any, future discussions on getting through log jams?
Yes.
Both on the Aurora obstacle and the Aurora master plan?
we did discuss that, so yes.
And is any more discussions on how we solve this problem versus, I mean, it's sat for, gosh, the Aurora obstacle has been for a year. I mean,
Yes,
Okay.
we're very aware of that. And we emphasize that quite a lot too, so. And then Tony, will you discuss that during your presentation?
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, perfect.
okay.
And I'll let Tony address that.
Okay.
Thank you. And then finally, there's, next slide. There's always challenges, right? It's not a job without a challenge. So the event, that happened at the last board meeting is just still under investigation, and that's as far as I can, tell folks. And then, we are working through workflow issues, at the agency, just getting that's part of the discussion that I had with everybody as well, just to figure out where we can find those efficiencies and where we can have like people work together. So those discussions are ongoing. And finally, meeting the governor's expectations. That's an important thing. It's a challenge, that I'm definitely up for meeting. But at the same time, there's going to be some unfunded mandates. So that's going to present some challenges in itself. So there's discussions about right sizing some of these expectations for agency size.
Speaking of the governor's expectations, the governor's transportation rep, if Catherine hasn't had a chance to have a phone call with her, can we formally request 15 minutes to connect those two?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
It's like you're reading my mind, Martha.
I'm glad to see we got that connection.
Let's do it. All right. And on that note, that wraps up my first director's update. I probably spoke for too long. My apologies to everybody.
That's perfect. You've been busy. We look forward to hearing a lot more.
Thank you, Chair Baker.
Alrighty, super. So Andrea, are you next? You want to talk to us a little bit about core process?
Alex and I both are, so let me go ahead and get our presentation up. All right. So to start off today, we're just going to give a little introduction and overview of the core program, talk about our upcoming cycle this fall, a little review of our aviation review committee, and then we have a request of the board to approve the grant amount cap increase for this next core cycle as well. So just to introduce again, of course, Alex and I are the core program coordinators. And then let's go.
And the Aviation System Action Program, or ASAP, overviews and updates. So ASAP fund was created for House Bill 2075 in 2015. And it's funded through an increase of 2 cents per gallon gas and 2 cents per gallon of, jet fuel and F gas. And revenue is funded originally 3 grants, CORE, ROAR, and SOAR. And the program started in January 2016 with the sunset date of February 1st, 2022. For House Bill 2434 in 2021, the fuel tax sunset was lifted, increase in jet fuel and avgas was made permanent, and the ROAR program was closed in September 2021. And the funding from the ROAR program was split into SOAR and FOR. And here are some numbers, and I won't quite read through all of them, but so the core grant process, we have an annual grant cycle. Application period opens in the fall. It is reviewed and recommendations are provided by aviation review committees or ARCs. You may see that from time to time. And we have a final review and approval by the State Aviation Board here today and during our February board meeting. So cycle one, out of total applications that were funded, total expenditures, And then when the cycle was officially closed. And just to talk about our current cycle, 2022-2023, we funded 38 applications. That was the most yet to date. And of course, these numbers are only going to be up till what we funded, or what applications have been executed up to date. It's 5,000, well, just under 600,000. And yeah, as you can see, there are 6, I think now, that's probably a little dated. I think we're closer to 8 or 9 grants that have been fully executed out of that 38. And then our grant cycle 7 project. So the current grant coordinators, Andrea and myself, are processing through those 38 grant applications. And closer to 8 or 9 have been executed to date. And the total amount of those 38 grant applications, if all funded, is $3,102,932. The total project costs of a little over $41 million. Now, one of the focuses for this year is closures of inspections of previously closed grants. So because of COVID, travel restrictions and whatnot, a lot of the grants that were closed from 2017 till now, we've been able to get basically feet on the ground, inspecting what projects were completed, taking photographs, meeting with airport managers and then consultants and whatnot. They're going through that now, scheduling 39, closer now to probably about 32 or so inspections that are needed before the end of the year. And coming here in the next couple of months, we do have a new eGrants website that's currently being tested by Andrea and myself and other staff. It offers a much more intuitive and modern interface for grantees and ODAP staff as well. And we will be soon scheduling invites for training for grantees on how to work with the website. And so as you can see here, so Awama is the first week of October. So we scheduled our cycle 8 application period from following that. So the 9th through the 27th. So get your applications in then. And then in November, Peter and I will be reviewing all of those applications for completeness and whether or not they fit all of the needs. And then November through December, we'll be working with the aviation review committees to review and grade each of those applications. And then 2024 January, they'll compile their project list and recommendation to the aviation board. And then in February, the board will meet, review those recommended applications and approve or deny as appropriate. And then starting in February 2024, Andrew and I will process and start working with the airports and on getting their applications executed.
Alex, just curiosity, last few years, we've had considerable FAA money that have, basically paid for the match. A lot of goodness has come out of that for our airports, which then allowed us to flow more core money towards business development, those kind of things. Versus what has traditionally been, we've almost always run out of money at the core program when we talk infrastructure. I would assume that money is drying up for the cycle, or the cycle 8 in this next one.
Yes.
So for cycle 8, do we anticipate, I know I'm asking you to foresee the future, but do you anticipate it going that we will see much more of the core requests being for match dollars versus getting into business developments per se?
Andrea will get to this here shortly.
Okay.
And well, just wait till we get to that slide where you want to answer now.
Yeah, so you're kind of wondering as far as like, because the FAA had covered the 100% of so many, and that was mostly in 2020 and 21 cycle.
Mhm.
So even last year, we didn't have any, I mean, we had a full cycle because airports were not receiving those 100% grants anymore. So we're definitely anticipating much more in this cycle. You'll see in one of our slides the amount that we are hoping to be able to put out there for our grantees. So yeah, we are expecting a lot of people to have projects that they need money for, especially with the BIL funds as well.
Okay. Catherine, I see you've got a hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Meeker. I just wanted to give kudos to staff on this core program. You guys are extremely efficient. And I know you've got a huge volume of work. So kudos to you for just keeping on all of that. All of the airports across the state really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then just one more note, Alex had mentioned that we're starting our application cycle this fall, the same time as the Owama conference. And part of the reason that we're doing that is because Alex and I are going to be doing a grant writing seminar at the Owama conference. So any core grantees definitely show up because we will be giving tips on how to fill out our applications in the way that the Aviation Review Committee is looking for, the way that the board is looking for. So that'll be a great little training. And then I did want to go over a little bit on the Aviation Review Committee again. We do this about once a year just to go over because it's a very important part of our core cycle. So the Aviation Review Committee is established by the State Aviation Board and is comprised of one member from each area commission on transportation. We start reaching out to them typically at the start of the application cycle and request that they appoint their ARC member. And then the board approves those ARC members typically at the December board meeting. And the job of the ARC is to review the core applications to determine ranking for distribution of grant funds. The ARC uses criteria, which is outlined in ORS 319020 to grade these applications. So you'll see the criteria right there. There are 6 of them. Reduces transportation costs or improve access to jobs in Oregon, result in an economic benefit to the state, connect elements of Oregon's aviation system in a way that will measurably improve the project that is ready for construction or implementation, has a useful life expectancy that offers maximum benefit to the state, and then how much of the project cost can be borne by the applicant from sources other than ODA or Connect Oregon. So of course, our grants, we have the minimum match requirements, and if a grantee is able to put in more than that minimum, then they can be graded a little bit higher. And then finally, the ARC determines the applications based on it meets the standard, somewhat meets the standard, or does not meet the standard of those criteria. Our ARC review process is we typically divide the 12 members into a 2 or 3 cohort member groups, and then we divide up the applications among those groups. Each group discusses, scores, and recommends their set of applications, and core program coordinators also participate in that meeting, just if the grantees have questions and that sort of thing. And then once those cohort meetings are completed, we compile a list of the total scored applications, and then we have a full meeting, typically in January, where all the ARC members come together and they discuss those ties, and then or discuss the applications. If there's any ties, break them and rank the applications. So for ranking the applications, the review considerations were created by the ARC during the first cycle, and they may consider the application score, the percent of grant match by the applicant, numbers of recommended grants to be considered already for a single applicant, and then also, excuse me, grant applications dealing with safety projects. So I wanted to share a few discussion points from our 2023 ARC meeting that was held on February 18th this year. There were some areas of concern on the core applications where ARC members felt they had to make inferences due to missing information or lack of detail in the application responses. So again, I'll just bring up that Alex and I will be doing that training at Owama. Okay. And then also the ARC discussed whether application questions were as relevant for the priority 2 and 3 projects as they are for the priority 1, which are the AIP match projects. So the ARC did request that we review those scoring considerations for priority 2 or 3. The process to change those would be done through rulemaking. So program coordinators will be discussing with management to see if that's something that we want to go forward with. And then the ARC also requested that we do trainings for our grantees. So along with the Owama conference, we're also working on creating additional trainings, whether it'll be like screen recordings of processes we'll put on our website. We may hold, Zoom trainings, if something is relevant. So we'll send out gov deliveries on all of those when we get ready to do them. So, yes.
Can you give an example of, back to that previous slide? Where, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the flow.
No,
Where the criterias are not, may not be as pertinent to priority 2 and 3 projects. I'm just trying to understand how and why they would be set up differently, why you would want to have a different set of screening criteria.
yeah. And I'm wondering, Jim Knight, I know that you were on and you were our chair, along with Shelley Hummel last year, of course. And, but would you be willing to share kind of what your thoughts were on that? Looks like Holly's enabling your microphone.
Sure. Good morning, all. Could you please repeat the question? I want to make sure that I understand it clearly.
In the set of bullets there, it talks about the request coming from the ARC about the criteria that is used for scoring may not be as pertinent to the priority 2 or 3 projects. And that might want to change that priority or that screening criteria for those different level projects. And I was just trying to think of an example of what that meant in a real world application. Like, how would those screening criteria not apply to a lower level priority project?
I have to tell you that I'm at a loss for words, actually, how to explain that. I think, Hall, if we had an example of something that had come up in the past that we had made a decision that the criteria for that particular grant request really wasn't appropriate for the criteria that's obligated to us because of legislative action. So the one item that comes to me that might fit within that, your answer to your question was there was an applicant that was seeking a funding from the Department of Aviation to set up a truck transportation training center. So that's one example that comes to mind, is that applicant, what I think that was within the category 3 project. So
Yeah.
that's the first one right now, the only one that comes to mind, because I don't recall over very many years that we'd had any other grant requests that did not fit within the criteria that has been established for Department of Aviation grants. I hope this helps.
No, it does. Thanks. I mean, just from my perspective, to Kenji, to your point about like setting work priorities. And if this is like an outlier that this applies to like 2 or 3 projects, I don't know that you want to spend your staff time rewriting rulemaking in order to change criteria for that. Just kind of how significant a problem this was, or if it just fits a couple of outlying projects. And sorry.
Yeah. Well,
that's all.
It's okay. My recollection on the request for things that may be rulemaking where we were headed as the ARC committee was trying to provide a way to find a way to provide further education to applicants because regarding the appropriate ways to submit applications. So we've discovered over the past that many times that the applicants they're saying no to a question, and the no to the question would just about disqualifies them, or it certainly scores negative points on their application. And if they had a little bit more education on what the question actually meant and how to appropriately answer that question, that's a little bit different process of what we've been using in the past. When an applicant submits their application, nothing's changed on the application at that point. We don't have the power or the authority within the ARC to say, well, we don't like the way that you answered your question, and we're going to answer the question for you in a manner that would help you get this grant. So I think that our consensus as the ARC committee was we had a number of new applicants, new folks who had not even had the opportunities to submit grant requests. And I think what we're looking for from the ARC committee was a means methodology that staff could step in and provide more assistance at an earlier stage of the grant application that would give the applicants the best opportunity to be successful. So that's my recollection of why we are looking at making some changes to the scoring process. And it's a change to the application process.
Thanks, Jim, for clearing that up, because I kind of share Steve's concern is, if it's one-off, don't waste time.
Yeah.
But two, I have no desire to let more people try to get our money. This money is aviation money. It's not trucking money.
Yeah.
It's aviation money. Don't horn in.
Yep.
And I don't think that was
Okay.
what that one application, but Steve, I was gonna say, I'll scroll back through the ARC meeting notes and I'll grab a couple of the other ones that were pointed out that I had noted. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Because they were aviation related. It's just, they were,
Right.
the ARC was struggling, and it is exactly as Jim had said, that maybe it was because they hadn't answered the questions as well as they could have. So yeah, it's about finding a mechanism to help the grantees do the best that they can.
Yeah, well, I think, providing training to them, that you and Alex will do is certainly along that way.
Yeah.
Changing criteria to the chair's point, changing criteria in order to give more money away to things that have less to do with aviation. The criteria that you have are pretty broad and they are very supportive of aviation. So to bring in other things that are kind of tangential to it, I'd rather see us try and continue to spend money using those aviation criteria or allocate money. Grant.
So, yeah. I definitely agree. It's one of those things where training is of utmost importance and keep doing that boot camp and then also doing the training, getting the training materials out there. You can lead a horse to water, but guess what? You can't make it drink, right? So it's a matter of just making sure that we get that information out there and giving them as many opportunities as possible. I mean, a rule is a lot of process and it takes a lot of staff time. So we can discuss it, but my initial reaction is the same as the
It's a
board.
pretty good program.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Betty, you're on.
You have to unmute her.
Okay, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so to answer Steve's questions, I'm looking at the applications from the most recent grant cycle. And if Andrea, if you would go back a slide to the criteria, the questions, one more. So these are the criteria. So looking at the category 3 applications, I'm going to give you a couple of examples where they perhaps would struggle to be able to meet these criteria. For example, the Sisters Airport applied for a grant for an FBO and restroom and instruction center. Would that meet the criteria that are in here? I think that's perhaps where some of the ARC members were struggling with it. And then, for example, Beaver Marsh was wanting a water truck. Sisters was looking for a snowplow. Madras had the helibase, some support equipment for John Day, a fuel tank for the Dalles, emergency generator. So I think those are examples of category 3, ones that might not fit this criteria. And I think that's perhaps what the ARC was referring to when saying maybe some different criteria would apply. So Steve, did that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks, Betty. Appreciate that. I do think, though, that we can't legislate everything. I do think that the ARC has to bring forward, and there's a great number of common sense in that ARC. I think if you start chasing down, trying to nail down every little thing, you're going to find out that that job is impossible. So I would be very hesitant as a board member to really open up the guidelines. I mean, you can bring it to us. Not saying it's going to go anywhere, though.
Well, and that's why also I have on there that it's just a discussion point that we're at right now. Because, yeah, I mean.
I didn't mean to hijack
Yeah,
the
no.
discussion. Sorry.
But I wanted to make sure that all of the ARC's concerns and their suggestions were brought up here, so. All right. So yeah, then I was on to our core program request. So we are looking to increase the maximum grant award amount to $250,000 for core cycle 8, as we did with core cycle 7. Per Oregon administrative rule, the aviation board may award a larger grant amount than $150,000. The war program was closed in 21 and the revenue was moved to 4. So we have extra money in there that we've had for the past couple of cycles. And then, of course, we've had increased project costs due to inflation in market, which the airports have been asking for more money because of that. So our estimated funding for cycle 8 is at 4.5 million, which would be our largest cycle, of course. So we're really hoping that this will give the airports a good opportunity to be able to just take advantage of the funds, especially VIL funds. We're doing match on those, just like the AIP. So they've got a lot of projects with those funds coming up. And then, of course, being able to get into the priority 2 and 3 applications as well. After this year's cycle, if we are able to give out the whole 4.5, then we will be carrying a lower cash balance. So the application cycles will become more competitive. So this is a good year to get applications in if the airports have funding for their matches. And then one more point on any application that is approved for the $250,000, there is an additional review of the grant agreement required by DOJ. So those ones do take a little bit longer to execute. And then I did just put a couple of tables here, just kind of showing sponsor matches, what their project cost would need to be in order to qualify for the $250,000 grant match for non-FAA projects and also for FAA projects. So for our core program, Alex and I would like to request that the board approve an increase to the maximum allowable for grant amount from 150,000 to 250,000 for cycle 8.
One thing before we get into a motion on this,
Yeah.
if we do approve this, I would ask the director that when you come back and you ask for the 250, there needs to be a larger conversation with the board on, instead of every time coming and ask for an increase, the board needs to know, take a look about where do you want, should the increase just be across the board? And what is it you're doing by bumping this up 100K? Where do you want these funds to really allocate themselves? Because are you going to start opening yourselves up by getting large grants that maybe go to, you know, like Eugene or bigger airports because they have bigger projects? That's maybe a road you don't want to go down. I don't know. Maybe you do. Or do you, is there some thought about trying to keep this into small so that you can focus on general aviation? I don't know, but I think instead of coming and asking for increases every year, we kind of need to think philosophically, what is this cap achieving and what does the board want it to achieve?
Sure, and I think that's where the strategic planning is going to come into play too. So as part of that discussion, we can have that discussion. I think that again is going to provide guidance and guidelines to us of which direction the board would like us to take them.
Core special though. Core is directly tied to energizing currently general aviation. And I stress the word general aviation versus the commercial application. So I think the board needs to be clear in its head what it's doing when it raises the cap on core. This is your only grant project. This is the only way you can give money to airports. This is by far and away your strongest tool. You can do policy all day. Money is what makes airports go now. So this is your tool, by far and away your only tool, to really energize general aviation across the state. I would hope that there would be when the next time we have a discussion on the 250, we need to discuss what you want that to actually happen. So make sure you're cognizant of what's happening when you raise the cap. And it may be that, you know, it's just the fact that you may want to tie in some cost of living on this as well. So it just continually increases without board intervention. I don't know. It's just worthy of discussion.
And it would be good to see also if you had applied this to past years, past cycles, how
That's
many
a great
projects
point.
would have dropped off. Just to see what that impact could be going forward.
Catherine has a comment or a question.
Okay, let me go with Steve here and then we'll go to speak, let Catherine.
Oh, go ahead, Catherine. Take Catherine's, that's fine.
Okay,
Okay, thank you, Chair Meeker. And absolutely, I agree with all of your points, Chair Meeker. I would just let you know, across the country, small airports are struggling to utilize all of this additional grant funding because of coming up with that match. So it does make a difference when we can then, from our state organization, have a larger match. But again, I completely agree with you that there needs to be some strategic thinking around how this money should be spent moving forward.
all right, thanks. And you may decide that instead of, you may want to ask the legislature later on just to raise the cap. So instead of doing this every year, you just give certainty to the airports out there about what they can and can't ask for.
And Chairman, my question to Holly was gonna be, that review, when it goes from 150 to 2, is that solely just a legal review by DOJ, not a sufficiency of the type of applicant that they're, or of their application? It's just like a legal review?
Yes.
Like, are they viewing it for some kind of legal criteria versus some kind of? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either, to be honest.
Okay.
I mean, we had 3 applications that received 250,000 in last cycle, but none of those have executed yet. So I haven't been in contact with DOJ to talk to them about it yet. But I can definitely reach out to them and get you that.
Just curious why there would be a legal review of something.
If it's over $150,000.
Right, like.
But
It's in legislature that the cap's 150, so it may be the fact that we're going off. That's what I'm saying. If
I get it.
you've got a legislative cap,
Right.
you may want to see if you can approach the legislature to just raise the cap so you don't have to do
That's
this.
probably the more appropriate solution. You're right, Chair. Sorry. Now I understand the problem better. Thank you.
That brings to, is there going to be a waterfall effect on cycle 8 if there's a bunch of $250,000 grants issued and then you weren't able to get the money out because DOJ is holding up the review?
And that's one thing that we just don't quite know yet. So, and then just to make another couple of comments, the reason why we haven't even really talked about if this $250,000 is something that we would want to become permanent, because moved into core. And that's what's allowed us to be able to have a higher grant cap. In the future, if we don't have as much revenue in the core program, I don't think we would want to increase we wouldn't want to make that permanent. If we were to get an increase in our fuel tax, then that could be maybe something that'd be more appropriate. But I don't necessarily know that we're not looking to permanently increase it right now. And this may even be the last cycle that we requested on, just because we have a higher amount of funding for the cycle.
To the director's point, I think really a strategic plan will help you with that, because if you want to try and spread everything like peanut butter, or do you want to make some really strategic investments, higher investments?
That's good.
And say like runways and taxiways are really important to us. And yes, we'd like to be able to fund these other things, but. And so I think having a strategic plan will help you decide whether or not that's a valuable tool to have. But what limit of your cap is that?
Yeah, and that's where the board is going to be absolutely critical in helping us make those decisions.
Okay, so for this cycle, the staff has asked that we go ahead and put out on the street that we will entertain a cap of 250K for various projects going into cycle 8. Any other discussions, any negatives, anything you want to bring out before we take a vote on raising the cap for this cycle only from 150 to 250?
Chair Meeker, I just have one more quick comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
So even if the applicant does request the 250,000, the ARC can recommend a lower amount and the board can also recommend a lower amount. So I just want to reiterate that as well.
Okay, so this is providing opportunity. That's a really good point. This is only providing opportunity. This does not provide certainty.
Right.
Would it be prudent to put the cap just below 250,000 to avoid DOJ
If it's anything over 150, yes.
Oh, 150, so I just-
Anytime you go
Gotcha.
over, let's say.
Yeah, I misunderstood. I was thinking you were saying 250 per home. Yeah. Yep.
Any other questions out there? Okay, well, let me go ahead then and let's see, this is to approve, this is what this motion would be, is you'd be making a motion to, approve the request from the staff to increase the maximum allowable core grant amount that is currently capped at 150. You would allow it to go up to 250, and we would entertain it at, the core approving board cycle coming up arc in the fall, and then us board members would review this coming up in the spring of next year. So with that, do I have a motion, a first motion to approve?
I move to approve the motion as read by Chair Meeker.
Okay, so we have a first motion by Sarah. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Steve. All those in favor of the motion to increase to the maximum allowable core grant from 150,000 to 250,000 for core cycle 8 only, which goes from 2023 to 2024, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing no nays, the motion is approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And I would just say, Holly, thank you very much for the education. too.
Yes. Okay, so that now takes us to, let's see what we got here. Oh, we got Kristen up there with finance.
Good
Hey, Kristen,
morning. Hey,
Hey.
how are you? Good morning, Chair Meeker, members of the board. To
Uh-oh.
share my screen.
Okay, Kristen, you should be able to share it now.
Okay, thank you. I do see that now that I can share my screen. Okay, there we go. Can you see my screen now?
Correct,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. Okay, thank you. Okay, so since it is almost the end of the biennium, we have only a month left. So I wanted to give you all an update on how our finances are looking and our major programs. And then I'll also give you a brief planning update. So operations is the first program that I wanted to show you how the finances are looking. So operations, of course, is the major program of the agency, which is the majority of our personnel and then also our airport operations. So we operate with about a $5 million budget for the biennium. And so you can see we are forecasted to be under budget for the program, so that is good. We're also forecasted to have an ending balance of about $1 million. So that is good. That is what we aim for. That'll be about 5 months of operating income. And we have seen how we've needed that cash in the past when we have had some revenue challenges. So as far as our revenues, they are looking good this biennium. So they are about what we forecasted them to be based on our last forecast that was done about a year ago. So we haven't quite recovered from the loss of revenue from COVID. So you can see in 17-19, we did have more revenue in jet fuel than we're expected to have in this biennium, but we still do have more than we had less biennium. So it is recovering. So that is a good news story. So overall, this program is looking good for the biennium end. So the next program we'll look at is aircraft operations. This program is also looking really good. Aircraft registration is a very consistent program, and it's remained consistent with our expenditures and our revenue. So we didn't have much of a revenue loss even from the pandemic. And then we also had less revenue that we were having to expend during the pandemic because the aircraft registration revenue does go for that grant match. And we were able to save a lot of that because we took advantage of those 100% FAA grants. So the good news here is we're forecasted to have a very healthy ending balance at the end of this biennium of 1.6 million. And we do have that planned for the future biennium for a lot of our projects and our grant match. The next program is the pavement maintenance program. And this program, even more than any of our other ones, it is solely funded by jet fuel tax. So it did take the hardest hit of all of our programs during the pandemic. We were able to not take too much of a hit from that because we had a healthy cash balance going into the pandemic. And we were able to stay under budget this biennium. And we're going to have a very healthy ending balance of $1.3 million. So for the next bienniums, PMP, we might be able to actually increase some of the reach for the airport. So we're starting to talk to our consultants about that. So that looks really good. And then since we don't have a planning manager yet, so I wanted to give you a brief update on the planning department. So I know Andrea and Alex already updated you on CORE, but the planning department is also busy with PMP and FAA grants. So for PMP, Region 2, the Western airports just finished up, and these are the airports that were serviced there. And then design for Region 3 for the South and Central Oregon airports is underway right now. It's finishing up. And then the planning department is in the process of applying for 3 grants for this cycle with FAA. So that'll be the Aurora Fog Seal and Markings Phase 2 construction, Cottage Grove Apron Rehab Phase 1 construction, the Siletz Bay Runway Rehab Phase 1 design, and then also the System Plan Grant for 2023. And so that the main focus of that grant is for pavement evaluation. And so that is all for administration, financial, and planning. So do you have any questions for me on any of those?
Any questions from any board?
Thank you. Great update. Just Chris, on those projects or those grants from the FAA, have you had conversation with the ADO about those and their programs for next year?
Yes, we have been working with the FAA on those. So we have regular meetings with them. And so, yes, we have been working with them, and we have a deadline of getting everything to them by July 1st. So we're working towards that, and we'll be able to meet that deadline.
I was just curious because that's usually when you know whether you're truly locked in for next year.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
We are confident that those 4 grants will be going forward.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Anything else? All right, great work, Kristen, as always. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I think that brings us to Tony. True?
So,
All right.
to share my screen.
Should be.
Okay. Not showing. Where, one second. Oh, okay. Okay. So if it's working. So good morning, Chair. members of the board. Just a quick airports update for you. Just another perspective of our visit to Cape Blanco State Airport with Regional Administrator Stone and Kenji. So this was, I think, just your second week in the position, and already out in the field and getting into the weeds and
There's a drone in that picture.
yes. So yes. Just a quick VPD update for the Aurora State Airport. And we did have one VPD since our last meeting. This occurred May 9th. And this was, it was a little bit of a unique circumstance where we had a disabled aircraft that had just pulled off of the runway. They had a flat tire. And while some crews were working on getting the aircraft hooked up to a dolly to remove it from the taxiway, another mechanic was trying to reach them and had walked out to the aircraft. I think it's a kind of a unique circumstance where the person knew about VPDs and they knew that they can't go out there without clearance from the air traffic control tower. But I think there's an opportunity for us to explain that that still doesn't make an exception to this rule, and it does still classify as a mandatory occurrence reporting and qualify as a VPP. So we're gonna include that in our outreach and in our driver's training so that people know there are no exceptions to that rule, unfortunately. There's something I'm also interested in, a letter of agreement with the tower that may include some language on automatic closures for surfaces in the movement area. If there's a disabled aircraft or an incident, we certainly need for first responders to get out to the airfield in the event of an emergency, and I would expect that they would go straight out if needed in that case. So I think there's another opportunity for that to be formalized into an operating agreement. Okay, and then on the rulemaking in the April board meeting, I did share that we were going to bring the final rulemaking to the board here in this meeting in June, and due to just staffing limitations and time and workload, it's going to have to happen in a later board meeting. So we're not bringing that here today, but we will bring the final rulemaking to the board at a later meeting this summer, and it will coincide with the implementation of our driver's training program. On obstruction removal, we are sending our responses back to the FAA on their comments on our environmental assessment for Aurora. And we are going to send those comments and seek to move forward. From our last meeting, we talked about discussions with the FAA on the process and the timeline, and so we're going to take this approach first. We have had some discussions with the FAA, as Kenji's mentioned, but we are going to follow up on these comments and hope that we can move forward, and we will have further discussion when we can send those comments in. For Milano, we're same as the last meeting. We're just waiting for nesting season to end, and we're going to rebid so that we can go hit the ground running as soon as nesting season is over for the trees that are on our property and that we already have easements for. And then surveys ongoing out at Chiloquin. For the surface seal project, we are now doing an amendment to the design grant to include surface painted hold signs on the 5 connecting taxiways to the runway. And this is going to add one more design standard, one more layer of protection, and to give awareness to people that might potentially be entering the runway. So this is really intended to prevent runway incursions, and this is something that we were seeking to include. It kind of came through a little bit late, so we're just doing a quick redesign to amend that, and then we are going to be getting the bid package together and looking to get this surface seal project done later this summer. On the master plan, we did have a very good discussion with Kenji and with the folks at the FAA, similar to the environmental assessment for obstruction removal. The forecast has been in many different hands of the FAA for review, and so then we're getting many different comments and different perspectives on that. So what we did was we got together, we had a good discussion with them on getting on the same page and how to best move forward most efficiently so we can address the FAA's comments and then get to the approval of the forecast. So that's where we're at with that. We don't have another PAC meeting scheduled because we are still waiting on the FAA approval. Better place in terms of understanding and agreement on how to move forward.
Okay, I'm gonna ask it. Any hardcore guidance on when the next action will take me? I mean, it gets to be a little frustrating. We're here, we're working it. 12 board meetings in a row. We're working it. When is a definitive date for action?
It has been quite some time. It's been, I think, 15, 16 months now.
And this is why we had that meeting just a couple of weeks ago, also probably your second week in the position. Because it's taking so long. Unfortunately, I don't have a definitive date, but we did have a good discussion and a path to get there. I just unfortunately can't give a definitive date when the FAA will.
Well, I would take this as, next time you all come back out, if you could give us a date when you're gonna have a phone call with the FAA.
Yeah.
A definitive date on something. I don't care what it is. It doesn't have to be, you know, that we need a definitive date on when we're gonna get approval from the FAA. When is the next action that is going to be taken? A date. Hard date. That would be greatly appreciated. Thanks.
Okay. All right, so on Cape Blanco, we are working on redesigning that project because our sole bid came in higher than what we could even fund for the base bid. So we're redesigning and then we're going to look at rebidding the project at a narrower scope, narrower runway width that should still suffice for most all of its resiliency needs. And should bring the cost of the project down. Prospect? Yes.
Did you want to note the all bid as well?
So remind me, because we have potential all bids.
For Cape Blanca, so providing a pathway to get the full width.
Yeah, there may be an opportunity, if we can award a bid, then we may have an opportunity to negotiate and see if there's some value engineering or other opportunities to get back to the original design, which.
Really?
Full bid.
Is that, it's 100 foot, is that
150.
150 right now? Okay. Well, that would be interesting. I've never seen the FAA allow.
It's not FAA funded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so general funds from last year's legislative session and then our SOAR funds.
Okay.
Yep. And prospect design is ongoing. We're approaching 60% design and then we will be looking at probably going out to bid this winter and constructing in spring, summer 2024. And that's to connect Oregon and SOAR. And then Sleds Bay, we are approaching some tight deadlines on this one, but we are attempting to get this project out to bid and construct this summer. And this is for a record. So closures for these upcoming projects, the Aurora Surface Seal, we're looking at 10 to 15 days of closures for the taxiway and connector work, which will also require runway closure. And then aprons, taxi lanes as well. The Cape Blanco, just trying to keep that on the radar for those projects for runway closures, Cape Blanco, Prospect, and Sleds Bay. And then the folks at Independence, the HOAs are still planning their private improvements on their taxi lanes that will have some impacts on the taxiway Alpha on state property. We will have NOTAMs and we'll send out updates through Gov Delivery when we have more timeframes and more updated information so that everyone will be updated when we have more. And then some additional closures. So we've had for this month, some partial closures and wingtip restrictions at the main apron at Aurora for the air traffic control tower ceiling project that we're doing. And that is about wrapping up. We are looking at some potential impacts or closures for Joseph when we replace the PAPI a little bit later this summer. And then multiple impacts. We don't have a schedule yet, but we'll be doing quite a bit of airfield markings with new equipment that we've just received. And we're going to be getting all of our 28 airports on a schedule. They'll be on a rotation so that every 4 years, every airport will be receiving new paint. And where we have not had that previously. So this new equipment's really going to give us that ability to get in there and keep all of our markings updated, fresh, and compliant and aesthetic.
Good.
Yeah. And then similar for obstruction removal, we have a lot of plans for the next several winter seasons and then hopefully in perpetuity. So we'll of course share more information when we know what these impacts will be. We'll have notices, we'll send out updates for delivery for all of our airport users.
Yeah, and I can't say enough about the airport markings, you know, they're not, it's not only a safety issue, but when you have fresh markings, folks are like, oh, that looks really nice. And it allows people to be proud of their airports, like, well, we got this really nice thing, so.
Same thing about cut grass and
Yeah.
good markings, they're, you know, they're a place that's being well taken care of, looks like it's being well taken care of.
Exactly.
So that's really where the maintenance and the operations staff are putting on effort in getting their stuff. So talking about airport maintenance, the air traffic control tower, the sealant project that we're doing, this tower is 7, approaching maybe 8 years old now. And at one point there was an issue with the original coat of paint. It was removed because it was flaking, but the tower has been leaking. We've had water inside the building, so we are just wrapping up this project to seal up the control tower, and it looks good as new and should be protected from weather for years and decades to come. The airfield parking equipment has arrived. Sorry, I don't have a photo of that. I'll bring it next. But the equipment has just arrived, and very much looking forward to getting that out in the field. The PAPI for Joseph is en route, and we're expecting it in the next month or so. And then the lighted X's, we have ordered an upfit to modernize it and use LED lighting, and so that has been done. And they're operational, ready to go for the closures for the season. And then again, on structure removal, we're just waiting until October. And then if you visit our airports, you might see some updated signage, just refresh, old faded signage. We're just getting all that refreshed. So that's going to be an ongoing effort on all of our airports. And here's a photo of the new work that's been done compared to, I'll go back to the original, just where it was taken back down to bare concrete. And so it's really, really looking good. And again, this is about wrapping up. I haven't heard final confirmation, but the cones are going to get pulled and the apron will be back reopened.
Okay, good.
And talking about mowing, this year is our first year that we've had as many staff as we had in maintenance and operations. And so we have hit the ground running and had a really great mowing season so far. All of our Valley airports are on their second mow. They've all been completely mowed at least once. And this is the earliest that we've been able to do that. So we are already branching out. Dawn is out in Southeast Oregon at McDermott this week. And so catching up on the mowing, getting ahead of schedule, we are able to be more proactive in herbicide application and vegetation control, which has been really a game changer. So
Tony, you're gonna bring a tear to my eye. This is so pretty.
I love it. So, but it's great to see what that end result is. I shared this list. It's not really updated since our last meeting, but our staff continue to work very hard in these programs. On the driver's training program, airport inspections. This is a new system that we've implemented that I think is really helping us address issues as they come up and as we're inspecting our airports and finding issues. And then just working through all of the updating airport layout plans and volunteer program, etc. So really excited about making effort on these and all the hard work that staff is doing. Hey, so I do have a quick update, and I am looking for feedback on SOAR. We are, and Andrea and Alex are keeping me honest and on schedule because we are going to be implementing our next cycle 5 SOAR alongside to coincide with cycle 8 for. And so planning ahead, and I just wanted to share that these are our priorities, and this is largely coming from feedback from the board members and from the community and their public comments in board meetings. And so we've heard you all loud and clear. We are focusing on what are these two priorities, keeping our runways and our airport safe and operational. So really trying to focus on not having to close any runways at our airports. And so with that, we have two prior cycles where we have funding approved for Cape Blanco and Prospect. And I'm looking at a new request this fall for Oak Ridge in cycle 5. To coincide with those priorities. And then, of course, our other priority is infrastructure, so safety. And this is for the Cape Blanco airport. Last meeting, I shared a lot of photos from the air of how much tree removal we've done. That's been a great start, but there's still a lot for it to do. And this is so that we can get the PAPIs installed and operational to remove trees that are within the runway safety area and the runway object free area and in the approach and transitional services. At our other state airports, like quite a few other state airports, we have a lot of other obstruction removal needs, and we are looking at how to best tackle all of those for the trees that are on state airport property. As you know from our federal projects, from Aurora and Malino, it's a very lengthy, costly process to go through the appraisals and the easement acquisition to be able to get trees down off of state property. So right now we're just focusing on those that are on our property. And then we can definitely have a discussion of and see what that would entail and how we could tackle trees off our property. But that will be at a later.
Before you go real quick, Oak Ridge, I know you wanted to have a more general discussion about why we own Prospect. Oak Ridge may give an opportunity for the board to kind of work on that because we're in a pickle on Oak Ridge. Oak Ridge is gonna have to close if we don't get some more money, and we don't have the money to make it stay open. So we've got to think about a plan here about who we're gonna approach. Is it worth it? What does the community want? So in that ARC review, trying to get the local perspective of what Oak Ridge means to the state. We got to figure something out, but we're in a pickle.
Catherine has a comment.
Yeah, question. Catherine, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Meeker. I will just reiterate again the importance of this airport. I think this is the earliest year I have ever seen firefighting equipment at my airport, and we have at least 2 active fires in our area right now. So that is a critical firefighting airport up in Oak Ridge. And I think maybe taking a multiple track approach here is warranted, both through the SOAR process, but also at the state legislative level. And I know the city manager up there is working on it.
We got some work on getting some love for this airport. Because it's gonna take legislative love.
Yep. There's ongoing discussions with those.
Okay, that's good. Okay,
Yeah, and we have had a lot of local support from, as mentioned, from the city manager, in trying to get funding for this project. And so we are pursuing every option that we can.
To that, since you brought that question up, without more information, do not support 150-foot width at Cape Blanco. I don't understand what the push is for 150-foot width. Not only is it costly, but then you have maintenance on a lot of pavement that even in an emergency situation, I think you could argue isn't necessary. So why are we looking at 150-foot width at Cape Blanco and potentially closing Oak Ridge? So if that add-on is coming from legislature, if that's where the talks are, personally, I feel like that is more important looking at Oak Ridge rather than adding 50 to 75 feet of width to what we have the funds for at Cape Blanco.
sure. So we have the opening here for a larger conversation, as I think we're.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, so from cycle 4, we had $1.2 million approved for the Cape Blanco project. And And that isn't up to, that does not mean that we have to spend all of that. And if our bids come in for the 75-foot width, if there's some opportunity for us to save money and then put that toward overage, then that's certainly something we can look at. So yeah, so thank you for that feedback. And so looking at our current cash, we have about $2.8 million for the SOAR funds. And then after the encumbrances for the three projects, or the two projects, and then the contingency and worker funds, that leaves about $655,000 cash available. And we are estimating or forecasting a little over 500,000 in revenues through December of this year. So we're looking at approximately just under $1.2 million in total funds available for cycle time.
Going back, can you go back a slide? Going back to the Oak Ridge type of discussion and a little bit policy wise. Catherine, you'll be going in and being the aviation rep to the Connect Oregon. To kind of make that a tad bit more successful, you got to have a little bit more information than just when you walk into the Connect. It's very helpful if you've had discussions with ODOT beforehand, as well as a larger, if you've got some kind of really important project that you want to push for those Connect dollars, it's really nice to have a conversation with some players beforehand. So that means SOAR, you're gonna have to figure out what you're not gonna have money for. And what you want to push to Connect. And then you got to get Catherine filled in, and you need to go talk to a legislator or two, and more importantly, the ODOT staff. And they're fantastic about telling you where there's support and where there's not. That ODOT staff that runs that Connect program, dude, they are fantastic people. Absolutely kudos to them across the board. They will tell you kind of a little bit where their acts have got information and how they're going to use them. I don't know exactly how the process is going to run. Usually it goes to the acts first. They get a weighted score, then it goes to the component boards, aviation, transportation, shipping and and then they get a weighted score. I'm not sure if that's going to be the exact same way. Probably be a good chance though to figure out what you want to push to Connect, because that's going to happen late fall. Is that when is it late fall? Yeah, so that's coming up. And good chance to get, I think we got over 10 million in the last Connect. So it's a good chance to get some dollars. We had Oak Ridge before, but we couldn't pay the match, so we lost those Connect dollars. We just probably need to get a game plan together onto how you want to, what's the money that's going to be available in Connect, and what's the game plan for teeing it up, because there'll be some projects there that'll be statewide importance that will take a large part of the funding. But my guess is there'll be some low-level funding that will be scraps on the table that we can fight for those projects like an Oak Ridge.
Catherine has her hand up.
Oh, Catherine, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and thanks, Chair Meeker. Yeah, thank you, Chair Meeker. You actually brought up the topic I was concerned about, is that making sure we're planning for that match, because the match on Connect Oregon is much larger than the AIP funds. And I think just, from the standpoint at my airport, receiving a very generous Connect Oregon grant, and then we were pretty strained to come up with the match. Of course we did it, but it's made us think twice about applying for those funds because the match is so high. Perhaps that's something that could be taken on at the state legislature to reduce that, because I think that any general aviation airport is certainly going to struggle with making that match.
Fine. Go ahead, Kinji.
So, a quick thing, I know the governor's aware of this, but I think what might be important for us to do is just put together, I don't think the strategic planning process is appropriate for this, because that's gonna take too long.
Yeah.
And this is a priority. So what we might do is set up a Tiger team that includes some of the board members, and as well as some staff, and just figure out a path forward and just strategize on what needs to happen, who needs to talk to who,
Yeah.
and just get that in a cohesive manner, so we can all go in the same direction, figure something out. If the board's open to that, I'd really like to do that.
I think that'd be worth it.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, nope, no problem. Okay, so I ended up here. And that's exactly what I want to get into. I want to get your feedback. I want to put this out there. You don't have to answer today, but we are in the planning stages of what is the cycle 5 SOAR request going to look like. With the limited $1.1 million that may be available, with the forecasted revenue, how can we best utilize that given the priorities that we have for the Oak Ridge runway reconstruction and for obstruction removal? So just down below, or at the bottom table, we're estimating, we have a year or 2-year-old estimate now that had the reconstruction at $2.5 million for the Oak Ridge project. And that was a pretty rough estimate, and we know prices have gone up since then. So if we're estimating about $3 million, then we would need 900,000 for a 30 to 32% match for connector work. And so this is where I have $900,000 on this table. And again, that's anticipating Connect Oregon, including Aviation, again, another cycle this fall. And then, of course, being awarded those funds for Connect Oregon. For obstruction removal, there's a lot of interest, and I think there's a really good opportunity to acquire a piece of equipment that would be more economical than renting what we had rented to do a lot of work at Cape One. It's very effective, but it was costly to rent on a minimum 4-week basis. And so we think that there's enough need that we could put this equipment to use, not only for obstruction removal, but for mowing out at Joseph and at other airports, also potentially some snow removal, and a handful of other needs. It has a lot of various attachments. And that equipment, we're looking at $200,000 to $250,000 to purchase.
What's the equipment?
It can utilize any tractor or skid steer, but it's a mulcher attachment that the model we used for Cape Blanco was a Vicon brand. And I think there are others out there. So we have to look at state contracting and go out to bid.
Yeah, the only thing I would caution you against is you need to ask about maintenance. When I was in Charleston, South Carolina, we had equipment that could clear an acre a day when it was running. But it has spent as much time, if not more time, in maintenance than running. But it was worth it. But it had significant downtime. This is just part of the machine's build.
Sure, it is. And we did experience some of that with our rental as well. It had about a week or so that it was down. Our staff are fairly confident, and they've proven very capable of maintaining and operating our equipment. And what I'm really interested in this approach is that it's one piece of equipment to maintain, and it's used all year round versus something that sits 9 months out of the year, and then after winterization, it's got an old gremlin or something to work out. We've been experiencing that with our mowing equipment. When this thing gets used on the regular, we're hopeful that it will stay in good operating condition. So we estimate about $250,000 to acquire equipment and a range of attachments. And then we're also looking to continue the $100,000 for contingency, which we believe we'll need with the increasing costs and the high bids that we're getting.
Okay.
And then $100,000 for the airport workers fund. So this would put us at a cash shortage of $181,000, based again on the current cash balance and forecast revenues through December. And so there's a cash shortage. And what I really want to put out to the board, and I'm open to feedback on, when I bring cycle 5 requests this fall to the ARC and to do we want to look at, do we want to prioritize one over the other? Do we want to look at a full fully funding the construction of the Oak Ridge runway? Or do we want to look at phasing the Oak Ridge runway and fully funding the purchase of structural equipment? If we took, I don't have the number here, but if we looked at fully funding the Oak Ridge runway, we could be looking at about 60,000 in cash on hand to rent the equipment again for another year and then approach purchasing the equipment in the future cycle as well.
And then Kenji, I would add to that, is there any additional funding that you could swing to the solar project that cuts from another piece? I don't know, have no idea, just asking. So that'd be a worthy discussion. Karen.
So all of this information is in the slides, and if you have any questions, reach out anytime.
And this is one where we really want advice, because we want to get guidance on this.
I think that probably needs to be a set aside discussion specifically so the board can probably think about that a little bit with a little bit of information beforehand.
Yep, absolutely. Not today.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
Okay. That's.
All right, you guys are doing God's work though, you gotta give your maintenance team out there, things are looking good, so. We can continue to help make that happen, I mean, that's, you guys make the airports run, so. Who could that possibly be operating in that?
I don't know. I know you're taking photos of my hand.
All right, thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, so, right now on the agenda, we have a break scheduled. But then after that break, we just drive into board updates, which I would imagine would take all of about 10 minutes. Anybody opposed to just driving forward and wrapping this up?
Sounds good.
I imagine Catherine's sitting in an airport right now, so if we could make sure we get.
I
get done.
am. Yep. I will be running for my plane at exactly 12:20.
All right. So board updates, Catherine, you got anything for us while you're there?
Sorry, there we go. I was just going to bring up the topic that we're working through here at Eugene, and I know is going to be addressed at small airports, not just in Oregon, but all across the country. And that has to do with the length of leases, of ground leases for hangar improvements. And so we're running up against the 40-year and the 50-year mark. We've recently adopted the PDX policy in place and the Redmond policy in place around these ground leases. And the AOPA is hearing from members, of course, that don't like this. But what our approach has been is we want to stay in compliance with our grant assurances, but we really don't have a dog in the fight. If AOPA wants to take this on with either the FAA or most likely it would have to be congressional action. We're fine with that, but throwing the rotten tomatoes at me is not going to be effective because I'm not going to be able to make those changes unless I'm given the blessing by FAA. And so I just wanted to flag that for the group. A big thanks to Steve and PDX for paving the way a few years back because you're older and wiser as an airport. And then Redmond also that adopted the same policy. Trying to be consistent across the state, I think, is important. But I understand the arguments of general aviation folks who've made these investments in their hangars, and the 50-year mark seems a bit arbitrary. Perhaps it's time to change that, and that's what we have recommended to the AOPA is that go for it, take this on. So I don't know if any other board members have thoughts around this, but I think there's probably some good discussion coming up.
Yeah, I have to admit, I caught half of that, 2/3 of that. So what was the issue again from?
Lease terms, for, and reversion clauses, lease terms, and it's basically comes down to a lot of, not a lot, but for some newer developments, we've heard concern, especially on the GA side, that the 30-year lease term doesn't allow enough time.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
The investor to amortize that. However, they're also getting a 20-year
Extension.
Yeah, well, they're getting a 20-year loan from the bank and we're giving them a 30-year lease, so. You know. See that as may, I think there's plenty of time. However, we have. Instituted some things that allow, depending on the magnitude of investment, for the possibility for some greater 30-year terms, with some extensions based on. If it's a super large investment, then we can look at a greater than 30-year term.
Not the first time this has been brought up.
No, but to Catherine's point, you know, it's been evolving across the industry for, and other different airports have come up to speed at different times. So, yeah, we've had this in place for many years.
Any other questions out there? Okay, so we look forward to more discussion on that and seeing what AOPA is doing. Anything else from board members? All righty, well, it's my last board, so I gotta say goodbye to y'all. It's been fantastic. Been real pleasure here just stepping in and doing the work. It's just fun doing policy when you're talking about aviation. And then having the core grant cycle, that's a cherry on top when you get a chance to actually give no kidding funds to an airport to let them really see something, you know, achievable with that airport. So it's fantastic. So with that, Catherine, by the way, we've got this really cool thing. So we're gonna retire this old gavel. And we have this brand new gavel. Look at this. This is sexy. Right there, Catherine Stevens, Oregon Aviation Board, as of today, she's your new chair. So with that, I'm.
Wait,
we're
not done yet.
Oh, we're not done yet. Okay, hang on. I got
Yeah,
one
wait,
digit.
you can't be off the hook yet.
All right, I won't gavel it out.
All right. Well, Martha, thank you so much for your service to the
welcome.
state of Oregon. You have contributed so much and had such an impact on everything here. So on behalf of the state of Oregon,
Oh, thank you.
thank you so much for your service.
Oh, that's awesome. Check this out, guys, in internet land. Check that out.
Yeah. And then, could you gavel down real quick? Cause I'm gonna do something.
What's it good? Oh, you want me in?
Yeah, go ahead, gavel. Go ahead, gavel.
Okay, I'm gonna gavel out.
Okay, you can keep it running.
Gavel it out.
Since this is alcohol.
Oh. Thank you very much.
Martha, there's a bottle of wine for you. I hope you
Thank you
enjoy
very
tonight. You know, it's your Pinot, as you said.
Awesome.
That was not purchased using state funds. Do not worry, that was not doing that. So enjoy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And we hope to see you at more board meetings, of course.
You betcha.
I know we're not getting rid of that, so.
I will see you around.
Thank you.
Please tell Charlie that the gang there at the maintenance school, they do good work, and Pickle King and Charlie's back, but they're just good eggs across the board, so. All right, with that, guys, I do believe we've got a tour on
I
board.
put a little
True?
note, I know my connection's really bad, Martha, but I put a little note in the chat for you. I just appreciate all that you've done for the ODAB, and it's been a total pleasure working with you over the years.
Fantastic. Thank you, Catherine. And I look forward to handing over to you. You guys are going to do great. If you haven't got some of the knowledge on the board, holy smoke. If you didn't know, Steve runs, the Port of Portland over there at the airport, Portland International. Catherine, airport manager for Eugene. Fantastic work doing some planning, former ODA planner out there working to helping us with Joseph and the eastern side of the state. Awesome, and I'm glad to see we got a dog here today, so that does my heart, because I got two at home. So, all right, so I'm gonna close it, and we're off to do a tour of the Erickson Museum. Is that true? Fantastic. All right, guys, been real. Thanks much.
Just for the recording.
Enjoy.
Andrea reached out to Tom Kruger and he didn't answer. So I'm not sure, but he's able to make it.
Okay, we'll check on it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. It's recording the buzzer.
Just so you remember.
Yes.
Okay.
So anything you can do